In the present day, a carriage appears to have been attacked by monsters. There, a young defenseless girl is at the mercy of goblins. But just when things seem hopeless, a black figure steps forward to protect her. Skip past a few years, our lonely virgin main protagonist, Lost, is unexpectedly invited by a girl to form a group with her, leaving everyone in the Adventurers Guild completely shocked. The healer, who's holding a recruitment sign, is taken by surprise as the girl. The girl then shows off her skills in front of him, making it clear she means business. Slightly embarrassed by the situation, Lost introduces himself as a healer or something similar. However, Amherst, a guild employee, grabs Narcina by the shoulders, asking if she realizes she's inviting the useless virgin into her group. According to Amherst, Lost is only capable of basic healing and nothing more. An orphan similar to you who came from the labyrinth. He's been an adventurer since childhood but hasn't developed his skills beyond the basics, earning him a reputation as an incompetent. Worse still, Lost once joined a group called the Lightning Blades, only to be kicked out due to his lack of ability. Because of all this, Lost is known as the most useless adventurer in Mard. Amherst warns Narcina that unless she's wealthy, relying on Lost will drain her resources. In response, Narcina confidently pulls out a bag of money, reassuring Amherst that she'll be fine. The guild employee warns her to be cautious with her money in such a shady place, full of sketchy characters lurking in the shadows. Grateful for the advice, Narcina thanks Amherst, but remains determined to form a group with Lost, stating she made her decision long ago. Amherst, intrigued by her persistence, hands them the registration form for group members. While Lost signs, Narcina gazes at him, feeling like she's finally found the person she's been searching for. Caught off guard when Lost passes her the form, she jumps slightly, having been lost in her thoughts. Once both names are on the form, Amherst asks for the service fee, which Lost pays. With everything settled, Narcina eagerly announces that their group is officially formed and extends her hand to greet her new companion. Though confused by her enthusiasm, Lost politely shakes her hand. Without delay, the two head to the Mard Labyrinth. Along the way, Lost explains that no one has ever reached the end of the labyrinth, so the final boss remains unknown. Many parts of the dungeon are unexplored, offering countless opportunities for adventure, and it makes Mard the largest labyrinth city in the region. Narcina, however, wonders if it's a good idea to head straight into the dungeon, given Amherst's earlier suggestion to try the western field first. Lost explains that many areas around Mard experience monster attacks due to the magical energy leaking from the labyrinth, such as the eastern mountains, the northern forests, and the southern swamp. The western field does have weaker creatures, but it's so vast that finding them is difficult. In contrast, the labyrinth is packed with creatures, and as long as they stick to the early sections, the monsters shouldn't be much of a threat. After their journey, the duo finally arrives at the entrance of the labyrinth. Narcina confidently takes the lead as any skilled martial artist would, leaving Lost to provide support. While he's fine with this, Lost silently questions whether this beginner can really handle the monsters inside. However, it quickly becomes clear that Narcina is more than capable, as she relentlessly obliterates every monster they encounter, even striking a flashy victory pose after each battle. Impressed, Lost realizes she's not to be underestimated. Meanwhile, they collect the items dropped by the defeated monsters as they continue through the dungeon. The healer explains to Narcina that the items they collected are magic stones, which adventurers sell to the guild. The guild then uses the magic within these stones to create various items. Narcina, though skilled in combat, admits she didn't know this despite it being basic knowledge for adventurers. She asks how much the stones are worth, and Lost tells her that the ones dropped by goblins aren't very valuable. To make more money, they'll need to defeat stronger monsters that drop pricier items. Still, what they've gathered should be enough to cover their lodging for the night. Narcina, eager for more action, suggests they continue deeper into the labyrinth, promising to protect her healer no matter what. They press on, and soon, Narcina narrowly avoids falling into a trap. Lost, quick to react, places a stone on a block to trigger the mechanism, revealing a pit filled with iron spikes and unfortunate adventurers who weren't as lucky. Shocked, Narcina asks how he spotted the trap, and Lost explains that the block looked darker than the others, raising his suspicion. While she thought trap detection was a thief's skill, Lost admits that after years of adventuring, he's picked up a few tricks. As they proceed, the duo encounters an orc, which looks oddly similar to your mother and much stronger than anything they should be facing at this part of the labyrinth. Lost suggests they can defeat it if they work together. Without hesitation, Narcina charges at the orc, landing a powerful spinning kick to its chest. Though it feels like kicking a stone wall, she's able to dodge its slower attacks. However, when the orc slams its club into the ground, shards of rock fly everywhere, one of which strikes Narcina's arm. The orc then pins her against the wall, ready to deliver a fatal blow. Just in time, Lost steps in and defeats the orc with his sword. Narcina, shocked and grateful, asks if he's really just a healer. Lost, playing it off, explains that he's learned to fight after years of adventuring. He then notices her injury from the rock shard and heals her arm. Afterward, they collect the magic stone dropped by the orc, a much more valuable item than the goblin stones. Despite their haul, Marcena wants to delve deeper into the labyrinth, face even tougher challenges, and Lost doesn't object. By late afternoon, they return to the guild with a large collection of magic stones. Amherst, the receptionist, is stunned to see how many items they gathered, especially the orc stone. She accuses Lost of recklessly taking the rookie into the deeper parts of the dungeon, but Lost explains that the orc was unexpectedly near the entrance. Amherst believes him as she's heard rumors of strange happenings in the Marred Labyrinth. However, Amherst, being in a lower-ranking position within the guild, hasn't been informed of the details regarding the strange happenings in the labyrinth. Setting the conversation aside, she asks if Lost and Marcena want to sell all their magic stones. But when Lost confirms, Amherst beams with excitement and quickly arranges their payment. Marcena, puzzled by her enthusiasm, asks Lost why the receptionist is so happy. Lost explains that guild employees earn a commission when adventurers under their management sell items to the guild. This means they've done Amherst a big favor, which is why she's no longer upset about them disobeying her earlier advice to head to the western field instead of the labyrinth. With no use dwelling on the past, Amherst hands them their payment, a sum 10 times larger than what Lost was used to receiving from his previous expeditions. In that moment, he realizes that his old group, the Lightning Blades, had been cheating him the whole time. Marcena, irritated, comments that the guild should ensure all group members receive their fair share for the work they've done. Amherst responds that the guild only mediates payments if the group pays the required fee for such services. Lost, however, decides to let it go, as the Lightning Blades are part of his past and it's time to move on. With that, the duo bids farewell to Amherst. Meanwhile, a man upstairs named Handsome watches Lost as he leaves the guild. A little later, while Amherst gleefully counts her coins like a crackhead, Handsome approaches her and scolds her for letting Lost join a new group. Amherst clarifies that she didn't recommend the healer to anyone. Marcena was the one who insisted on forming a group with him. Later, Lost and Marcena head to a nearby tavern, where they're greeted by a young waitress. However, the waitress seems less than thrilled to see her friend Lost accompanied by another girl. Afterward, Lost approaches Mary, the waitress's mother, to book a room. The innkeeper asks if they want to share a room or have separate ones. Marcena feels a bit anxious, but Lost promptly says they'll take separate rooms. Marcena quietly admits to herself that she would have preferred sharing a room, but she keeps it to herself. As they head to their respective quarters, they wish each other good night. Lying in bed, Marcena's thoughts drift back to her childhood, recalling the day her carriage overturned on the road and Lost healed her injured arm. It was that moment that inspired her to become an adventurer and find Lost, determined to protect him in return. Since then, she trained rigorously and came straight to Mard upon hearing that Lost had been kicked out of his group. Now with Lost in her group, Marcena feels a bit disheartened that he doesn't seem to recognize her, as she's changed so much since their childhood encounter. Furthermore, despite all of her training, it seems like Lost doesn't need her help as much as she thought. He's proven to be much stronger than the rumors suggested. Still, Marcena remains committed to keeping her promise and staying by his side. She doesn't understand why people call him useless when it's clear Lost has real talent. Looking back, we are shown how his former party was in terrible shape after being decimated by a powerful dragon. There, he managed to heal one of the girls, but couldn't neutralize the poison in her system. He reassured her that rest would eventually cure it, but this only frustrated her further. The party began to fall apart since their leader needed everyone ready to fight, yet the girl was in no condition for battle. Tensions rose when Lost pointed out they would need antidotes, which they couldn't afford. Frustrated, the leader insulted Lost, calling him useless, and ordered the mage to attack the beast with everything she had. However, her fireball only enraged the creature more, and the leader, furious at his team's incompetence, concluded that leading such a group of failures was impossible. He retreated, advising the others to do the same. The mage quickly fled, and Lost stayed behind to assist the injured girl. Later, Lost was kicked out of the Lightning Sword party, taking the blame for their failure to defeat the Hydra. They claimed his abilities as a healer were inadequate, though Lost pointed out that their defeat was due to the team's partying the night before. This only escalated the arguments. The leader left it to the mage to decide who was at fault, and feeling pressured, she placed the blame on Lost. Now in the present, Lost reflects on how this wasn't the first time something like this had happened. 6 years earlier, his reputation as the most incompetent healer was already well known. Despite this, Lost never gave up on his dream of becoming a great adventurer. He was eventually invited to join a party, but it turned out they didn't need a healer. Instead, they used him as bait to lure monsters, a common fate for labyrinth orphans like Lost. However, he wasn't even good at being bait, and the party was wiped out. Lost had always hated pain and feared death, but when he saw a young girl in danger, he pushed those fears aside. To this day, he doesn't know why he ran to help her, but he fought the goblins as best he could before being knocked unconscious. When he woke, he realized it wasn't him who had saved the girl, it was a group of knights. This reinforced his belief that he was still incompetent. But the girl saw things differently. She thanked Lost, explaining that his actions had bought them enough time for the knights to arrive and save them. Lost healed her, and upon hearing how poorly he was treated, the girl cried for him. Sympathetic to his plight, she made a vow to become an adventurer herself, so she could team up with him and protect him. Coming from a noble family, Lost knew her dream was impossible, but her words still gave him hope. Determined, he sought out a teacher and began training. He learned basic healing techniques and other important skills that every adventurer should have. Eventually, Lost felt confident that he had become a competent adventurer, and that's when he joined the Lightning Sword party. He credited the girl for keeping him motivated and preventing him from giving up on his dream. Thinking about her now, Lost realizes that he's glad he didn't give up, especially since that decision led him to meet Narcina. Just as Lost finishes reflecting, Narcina arrives and the two head out for breakfast. Afterward, they venture into the labyrinth, planning to delve even deeper than before. When they reach a teleportation circle, Narcina sees one for the first time. Curious, she wonders if it can send them anywhere, but Lost explains that these circles can only connect to other places with teleportation circles. Narcina jokes that it would be better if they were placed in towns, but quickly realizes that doing so would make it easier for monsters to attack. Lost then corrects Narcina, explaining that monsters can't actually use teleportation circles. The reason these circles aren't found in towns is because the knowledge required to create them was lost hundreds of years ago, and no one today has the skill to make new ones. After that, they use the teleportation circle and arrive at the middle levels of the labyrinth, where the monsters are much stronger, so they have to proceed with caution. They soon encounter a monster, but Narcina's attack is ineffective. Lost explains that it's a lich, a spirit-based monster that lacks a physical form, making it immune to standard attacks. Monsters like this are difficult for adventurers who can't use magic, and Lost suggests they should flee. However, Narcina is determined to fight, confident in her abilities. The two devise a plan. Lost distracts the lich and lures it toward Narcina. Through intense training, some humans can manipulate ki and inner energy, allowing martial artists like Narcina to even attack spiritual entities. Using this power, Narcina delivers a devastating blow and destroys the lich. The two celebrate, though Narcina is injured. Lost uses a magic tool that enhances healing, restoring her health. The lich leaves behind a valuable magic core, and Narcina wonders how much it will fetch at the guild. When they return, Amherst, the guild's administrator, is once again impressed by the treasures they've brought in. After receiving a substantial reward, Lost and Narcina head back into town, where they stumble upon a heated argument between adventurers. Lost comments that troublemaking adventurers have been causing unrest in town lately, but he decides there's nothing they can do and suggests they treat themselves to a fancy meal. When they arrive at a restaurant, the waitress questions whether Lost can afford such an expensive meal, but he confidently tells her to get him a beer. Narcina also wants to indulge, but a young waitress informs her that they don't serve alcohol to minors. While feasting, Narcina brings up something she's been curious about. She saw a tall structure in town with no doors or windows, and there are several of these strange buildings. It doesn't seem to be a monument. Lost admits he doesn't know what they are either, but reveals that he once asked some craftsmen about it. They said they were building the structures, but even they didn't know who commissioned them. The project was initiated by a series of agents, each hiding the identity of the true client. Though mysterious, the structures haven't bothered anyone, so people don't question them. Lost thinks the town should focus on building a city wall instead, but Narcina prefers the city as it is. She points out that with so many adventurers around, the town doesn't need walls. Any invaders would be swiftly dealt with. That night, the pair prepare to sleep. Narcina wants to tell Lost something, but chickens out at the last moment. She had hoped to share a room with him, but can't bring herself to ask. Meanwhile, Lost reflects on how fortunate he is to have a reliable partner. He also wonders if the girl he met years ago will ever return, though he acknowledges that without her, he wouldn't have made it this far as an adventurer. The next day, the leader of the Lightning Sword party introduces a new healer. Though the other members are less than thrilled, the leader remains upbeat, declaring that this time they will defeat the Hydra. Meanwhile, in another part of the city, a mysterious man receives word from someone named Handsome. Handsome reports that someone called the Sleeping Beauty is in this city and has teamed up with Lost. Alarmed by this, the man orders Handsome to ensure Lost is expelled from the city as soon as possible, fearing that time is running out. In a distant dark territory cloaked in shadows and surrounded by dead trees, Margulis observes that the Hydra's severed heads haven't regrown. With this in mind, he declares that he and Lyra will launch the attack, with Armia providing magical support from afar and Siberia sneaking around for a surprise assault. Lyra, however, reminds him that she's a healer and shouldn't be on the front lines. Margulis finds this strange, recalling that Los, their previous healer, would always join the fray. She finds it absurd to push a healer into close combat, but Margulis explains that Los would charge in recklessly, sometimes landing a good hit. Siberia adds that it was Lost who managed to sever the Hydra's heads, but Margulis still insists that Lyra stay back for safety, taking on the front lines himself. Meanwhile, the protagonist and his partner return to the guild after a day of gathering, exchanging their haul from the dungeon for money. Judging by their quality of items, Amherst, the guild receptionist, assumes they've ventured into the dungeon's intermediate levels and warns them to be cautious, suggesting they recruit more members to take on greater challenges. Lost considers it but prefers things as they are for now. Impressed with their progress, Amherst notes they're making enough to eventually afford a private house, which could serve as both a base and, as she teasingly adds, a love nest since they're a couple. This remark embarrasses Narcina, and she becomes furious, while Lost reflects on how his previous group, the Lightning Blade, rented a house where his room was mostly used for storage. Amherst remarks that his old group took advantage of his kindness, and she thinks it was probably for the best that he left. After another failed attempt to defeat the Hydra, Margulis seethes with frustration. While healing Armia, Lyra observes his determination even though he lacks the strength to face the Hydra head-on. Both Siberia and Margulis grudgingly admit that Loss, despite everyone's complaints, got the job done. They reflect on how he didn't even realize he was being underpaid. Margulis then wonders aloud why Lost had to leave, only for Siberia to remind him it was his own decision to kick Lost out. Comically surprised, Margulis doesn't even remember doing so and decides it will be simple to get Lost back by inviting him in person. Hours later, Armia wakes up to find Lyra, who had stayed by her side until she couldn't keep her eyes open. When Lyra offers to fetch something for her, she discovers that neither Margulis nor Siberia are in the house. They've gone back to the guild to invite Lost to rejoin the Lightning Blade. Margulis boldly proposes this in front of everyone, explaining to Narcina, who's shocked that he's Lost's former leader. Margulis adds that he knows it may be difficult to keep up with a first-class adventurer like him, but he'll make sure to protect Lost if things go wrong. Lost replies that this isn't the issue, but Margulis assumes it must be about money, insisting there was an error in Lost's previous pay. He insists that Lyra, the group's new healer, isn't skilled enough, so Lost's return is necessary. Lost responds with a polite thank you, giving the impression he might rejoin. Narcina, outraged, steps between them, fiercely defending her partner, now a valued member of her team. Lost then clarifies that his thank you was merely polite, as he has no intention of leaving his current group. Frustrated, Margulis accuses Narcina and the guild of taking advantage of Lost. Lost finally loses patience, gripping Margulis by the wrist and warning him to stop accusing Narcina. After that, he leaves without further explanation. Determined to defeat the Hydra, Margulis demands Amherst introduce him to a new, powerful frontliner. She's visibly tired of fulfilling his requests, but he declares to everyone present that the Lightning Blade will take down the Hydra no matter what. At that moment, a stranger steps forward, volunteering for the role. Margulis sizes him up and draws his sword to test him, ignoring Amherst's reminder that the guild isn't an arena. In an instant, the stranger disarms Margulis, astonishing everyone with his skill. Embarrassed, Margulis insists he was just going easy, but decides to recruit the man anyway. When Siberia questions if it's wise to trust someone who hides his face, Margulis replies that he only needs to trust his sword, nothing else. The Lightning Blade group stands at a turning point. Margulis is growing desperate. They can't afford any more failures against the Hydra. If they keep falling short, rumors will spread that they're incapable, sinking their reputation like a stone. To remedy this, Margulis asks their new recruit for his name. The man replies, Sieg, but hesitates, almost as if he made it up on the spot. Meanwhile, back at the inn, Narcina hears a knock and goes to answer. To her surprise, it's Sheila, the innkeeper's daughter, knocking on Lost's door. Narcina briefly suspects something's going on, but dismisses the thought, trusting Sheila. Just then, Lost appears and Sheila informs them they have visitors. Heading downstairs, Lost and Narcina find Lyra and Armia waiting at a table. Armia quickly apologizes, acknowledging that she's in no position to ask anything of Lost, but she needs his help. Lyra explains that Margulis has hired a new warrior and is planning another attempt against the Hydra. Armia admits that now, more than ever, she realizes how strong Lost is. If he hadn't severed a few of the Hydra's heads, the group might not have survived. She asks him once more to rejoin them, hoping to finally defeat the weakened Hydra. Lost considers the request and suspects Armia doesn't know Margulis had already approached him with the same offer. Narcina then asks Armia why she's still sticking by this group, knowing Margulis's attitude. Armia admits that Margulis is authoritarian, impulsive, rude, and downright reckless. Not to mention he's greedy, vengeful, and doesn't even brush his teeth. Yet despite all this, he's still her teammate. Frustrated, Narcina slams her hand on the table, demanding to know what loss ever meant to Armia. She points out that he was mistreated and neglected within the group, and nobody, including Armia, ever defended him. Armia admits she was too frightened to go against Margulis or Siberia, and even falsely blamed Loss for the team's failures. Remembering this, she breaks down, revealing she's only recently become an adventurer and didn't realize what she was doing. But now she knows Margulis was wrong. Despite everything, she feels unable to abandon her teammates. Lara gently explains that Armia has wanted to apologize to Lost all along, asking him to accept it. Lost extends his hand, reassuring Armia that he holds no grudges. She clasps his hand and thanks him sincerely, though he makes it clear he won't return to the lightning blade. Saddened, Armia lowers her head and says she understands. Just then, Mary the innkeeper arrives with a hearty meal, insisting she can't let a sad-looking girl leave her restaurant like this. As Armia gratefully digs in, Narcina asks Lyra if she might consider leaving the group with Armia. Lyra explains that if it were possible, she wouldn't be there in the first place. She, too, feels responsible for looking after Armia. Lost quietly remembers how Margulis belittled Lyra as useless and warns her that staying with the group may bring her trouble. But Lyra insists she won't abandon Armia. Later, as Lyra heads home, she encounters the new Lightning Blade recruit and addresses him as Sieg. Margulis overhears and corrects her. His name is indeed Sieg. The leader then calls the team to prepare for another attempt at the Hydra, more determined than ever. Lyra, however, pulls Sieg aside, questioning his presence and noticing he's wielding a familiar sword, Ronaldo's. Sieg nervously claims he inherited it from his mentor, then stumbles over his words, pretending he doesn't know Ronaldo at all. As Margulis' team once again heads into Hydra territory, bolstered by Margulis' renewed confidence, Lost and Narcina set off on their own journey, ready to face the challenges that await. Together, they tackle the deepest dungeons, always seeking tougher challenges to grow stronger. While fighting solo, Narcina faced her mother wielding heavy clubs, relying solely on her martial prowess and physical strength to defeat foes 3 times her size. After defeating your mom, Lost asked if she wanted to rest, but her readiness to keep going was cut short by her stomach rumbling. Lost laughed, teasing her about even the tireless Narcina needing food sometimes. With that, he suggested they stop for lunch. Once everything was prepared, Lost was surprised by the large quantity of food they had. Narcina explained that the innkeeper, Mary, had noticed she hadn't eaten earlier and sent them off with this hearty supply. As they ate, Lost began to share his knowledge about the Hydra, a highly venomous monster with muscular bodies and scales that resist both physical and magical attacks. Hearing this, Narcina couldn't hide her fear and asked if Armia would be alright. Lost explained that while Hydras are relatively common compared to more dangerous monsters, extensive research on them has led to the development of effective strategies and an antidote for their venom, though it's costly. Some groups, like Blade of Lightning, rely on healers like Lyra to monitor the team carefully during such encounters. Lost assured her that Margulis, while boastful, is a capable swordsman, and as long as he doesn't underestimate the Hydra, he can handle it. Siberia, with her agility, might even find opportunities to sneak up on the Hydra despite its multiple heads and wide field of vision. At this, Narcina jealously noted Lost's praise for his old team, and he awkwardly replied that he was merely stating the facts. Changing the subject, she admitted to being tired of visiting the same dungeon daily. Lost suggested trying a new location, and Narcina thought exploring the nearby swamps could be refreshing. Meanwhile, Blade of Lightning was battling the Hydra. Margulis managed to land a powerful strike on one of the Hydra's necks, and Sieg followed suit, severing another head. However, when Sieg hesitated on his next swing, Margulis teased him, accusing him of wanting to leave the Hydra-slaying credit to the leader. Margulis then charged the Hydra, but narrowly dodged a retaliatory strike. Lara, while healing Siberia, questioned Margulis' reckless approach. Siberia remarked that this was just part of his style and joined the fight as soon as her wounds healed. Lara observed Sieg standing back, strategically affecting the Hydra's movements without engaging directly. As Siberia drew the Hydra's focus, Margulis continued his assault with Armia backing up the group with her spells, creating a well-rounded strategy. However, things took a sudden turn when the Hydra hurled a rock at Armia, knocking her down. The monster then approached, terrifying her so much that a strange substance emanated from her. Siberia had never seen this before, so Sieg explained that some monsters feed on a person's fear, transforming it into energy. Lara noticed that this visible fear seemed to be raw mana, which should only be present deep within labyrinths. As the Hydra absorbed this mana, it began to mutate. Sensing danger, C urged Lara to attend to Armia and called for Margulis to pull back, but Margulis, eager to claim the Hydra-slaying title, ignored the warning. He struck the Hydra again, but to his shock, his weapon shattered against the creature's toughened body. Vulnerable, Margulis was almost struck down, but Lost intervened in time to protect his former comrade. Lost rushed to help Armia and questioned Lyra about her condition. Lyra explained that Armia, as a sorceress, had high magical resistance, making typical healing spells less effective on her. Healing her was akin to drying ice, it just wouldn't work. Determined, Lost began layering multiple healing spells at once, a tactic he often used in the past. Lyra was stunned, pointing out that overloading with spells wasn't a guaranteed cure, but Lost persisted, determined to help Armia in any way he could. As Armia slowly regained consciousness, it was clear she was alive but in no shape to continue fighting. Sieg then warned that the Hydra appeared to be calling out Lost specifically. Lost explained that it probably recognized him from previous battles. Marcina asked to join the fight, and Lost allowed it, though he instructed her to retreat if things got dangerous. At the same time, Sieg ordered the rest of Lightning Blade to stay back, which they accepted, especially since Margulis was unable to fight due to his broken sword. Lost and Marcina charged the Hydra, showcasing an impressive strength that shocked Margulis. Margulis couldn't understand why Marcina's sword remained intact, so Lara explained it was a legendary weapon with magical properties. Margulis had thought such artifacts were just myths, but was taken aback seeing one in action. During the fight, C kept up his assault but was struck by the Hydra, which took him hostage. This seemed to prompt the Hydra into demanding a duel with Lost. Lost then ordered everyone to stand back as he faced the Hydra alone. Suddenly far away, a man sensed the change in the wind and quickly wrote something down, closing his eyes. This action caused Lost to momentarily collapse, but he quickly stood up, now emanating an intense energy. A horn emerged from his forehead as the Hydra lunged, but Lost reacted instantly, cutting off all the Hydra's heads in one swift motion. Shortly after, he collapsed again, and when he woke up, he immediately asked Marcina if she was okay. She reassured him, mentioning Lyra had administered an antidote, though she insisted on being reimbursed for its high cost. Lyra also questioned Lost about his transformation, but he had no idea what she meant. Cynically, Margulis praised Lost, claiming he'd always known how capable he was and even suggested that with Lost's help, they could take down the master of the Mad Labyrinth. He then announced he'd split the Hydra's magical stones among 3 people, himself, Lost, and Siberia, leaving out the newer members, whom he dismissed as having done nothing to earn a share. He even declared Marcina as merely an assistant, therefore unworthy of any reward. When Lost asked about Armia, Siberia coldly stated she had left, implying she might never wake up, much less be of use to them. Margulis even suggested selling Armia, as there are enough people out there who like her type. Without hesitation, Marcina punched him, and although Margulis threatened to report her for violating guild rules, C and Lyra both denied witnessing the altercation, dismissing his complaint. Siberia, however, claimed she saw everything and sided with Margulis, until Sieg admitted he actually overheard Margulis discussing selling Armia. As a guild representative, Sieg could not ignore such a serious statement and immediately ordered everyone to return to the city. Upon returning, it was revealed that Sieg was an official investigator from the Royal City's Adventurers Guild, sent to manage the adventurers in this area due to rising safety concerns. His investigation uncovered enough evidence of misconduct by Blade of Lightning to have them expelled from the guild, with the added charge of attempted human trafficking leading to a sentence of forced labor. In a panic, Margulis and Siberia begged for mercy. Lost asked Sieg to spare his former teammates, explaining that although they had become greedy and reckless, they were once noble adventurers who might deserve a chance to start over. Moved by Lost's words, Sieg agreed, ordering the pair to leave for the farthest city and never return. Grateful, they quickly fled. As they watched them go, Marcina felt guilty, fearing her actions had caused their exile. Lost reassured her, saying it was the best outcome, and thanked her for standing by him through everything. Later, Sieg and Lara discussed keeping an eye on the Mart Guild since suspicions were growing that its management might be connected to the city's issues. Sieg proposed they form a new team to help, and Lara agreed on the condition that Armia would join them, as she couldn't bear to abandon her. Sieg agreed, feeling that he too wanted to stay close to these young adventurers, especially Lost, as they faced the challenges ahead. The next day, the new team lets the healer and the martial artist know about their decision to group up. Mark comments that they now have a well-rounded trio, a warrior, a healer, and a mage. Meanwhile, Lost checks in with Armia, asking if she's okay with this new direction in her life. Armia, a bit confused, responds that she really had nowhere else to go and felt indebted to Lara and Seed for saving her. They had already told her not to worry about it, but if repaying the debt made her feel better, they were fine with it. Lost and Narcena remind her that she has new friends now and needs the strength to move forward. After this discussion, the fighter asks Lost what they'll do next, and he explains that they'll first stop by the guild because they forgot to exchange the Hydra's magic stones for money yesterday. He also suggests they take on a mission, as it's an essential income source for adventurers. Narcena knows that adventurer jobs like eliminating monsters, gathering rare items, or acting as bodyguards can bring in good money. Lost adds that taking on missions also builds experience, which touches Narcena, realizing he had thought of her too. Embarrassed, she blushes but tries to play it off and heads to the guild with her cheeks still red. When they arrive, they sense tension in the air with all eyes on them, the guild members staring with stern faces. Through the crowd's murmurs, they learn that Lost the Useless was credited with slaying the Hydra. Picking up on this, Lost warns his partner to stay alert since they're the talk of the town and someone might try to steal their magic stone. Shortly after, an adventurer named Marnell approaches the Dew with his group, asking to speak with the healer. Lost, wary, questions the timing, and Marnell guesses that Lost's companions have made him cautious, so he asks his own companions to step back. With some privacy, Marnell tells the healer that his friends were merely curious about how Lost the Useless defeated such a feared creature. In response, the healer whispers to Narcena that Marnell doesn't seem interested in the stone. Then Marnell surprises them by bowing before Lost, apologizing on behalf of the guild members who turned a blind eye to the actions of Margulis, a vile man whom Lost had to face alone. Many, Marnell included, had even mocked Lost, calling him useless. Now Marnell seeks Lost's forgiveness. Narcena, the fiery tone, suggests that Marnell should kneel and apologize for 3 days and nights, noting that it's little compared to the years Lost endured such treatment. Even if a storm of spears were to rain down on him, it still wouldn't be enough to make up for Lost's suffering. Embarrassed, Lost quickly asks her to stop, fearing that if Marnell accepts, it'll make him look wicked. He admits that despite defeating the Hydra, he still considers himself a failed healer, only able to use basic healing magic. In his mind, he's still Lost the Useless, and would prefer to keep being called that. He extends his hand to Marnell, who, confused, takes it. Marnell promises that Lost can count on him if he ever needs help. With this encounter behind them, Lost and Narcena take the rare Hydra stone to the counter, curious about its worth due to its unique mutation. The clerk informs them that, in fact, the mutation makes it 10 times more valuable because monster mutations are rare, adding that they typically only occur deep within labyrinths, where mana is abundant. Lost mentions that the Hydra mutated in swampy areas, suggesting that mana can accumulate outside labyrinths too. However, Amherst, the clerk, expresses doubt, making Lost wonder if there's something wrong with the labyrinth itself. Narcena asks if the guild typically intervenes in such cases, and Lost notes that they should form an expedition team to investigate the source of the problem. As they discuss, Handsome, another guild staff member, appears, making Amherst nervous. Handsome reads a report stating that intermediate-level monsters are spreading into higher levels and confirming monster mutations outside of labyrinths. Despite this, Handsome dismisses the issues as insignificant, choosing to ignore them. Lost, concerned, insists that adventurers should be warned of the dangers, but Handsome brushes it off, stating that adventurers know the risks. As Lost pushes the issue, Handsome coldly suggests he should leave town if he's that afraid. Leaving Handsome's office, Narcena fumes at his dismissive attitude, but Lost decides to let it go. Amherst then explains that the guild's branchmaster, Mist, rarely appears in public due to his advanced age. Rumor has it that he's so old he rarely leaves his office, leaving Handsome to manage things on his behalf. Lost comments that Handsome must be highly capable for such responsibility, but Amherst adds that he expects perfection from everyone, harshly criticizing even minor mistakes. Because of this, the guild staff find him intimidating. Changing the topic, Lost makes a request to Amherst, and they sit down to review available missions. The options range from gathering medicinal herbs to searching for lost adventurers. Narcena frowns at an escort job where the client needs protection for fishing inside a maze, finding it unworthy of an adventurer. Losing patience, Amherst scolds her with a light flick to the forehead, saying, "It pays well, why not?" Eventually, they find a monster elimination mission, which excites Narcena. However, Amherst warns against it, explaining that there's a phoenix near a teleportation circle in the intermediate levels, a task that's dangerous for their party. Narcena remains motivated, but Lost points out the challenge of battling a flying creature without ranged attacks. Amherst suggests they recruit a warrior, a mage, and a healer with large area healing abilities. Lost and Narcena know exactly who to approach. Without delay, they reach out to Seed and Lyra. Lost quietly tells Narcena that it will be easier to monitor his work this way, and Armia, the mage, can hardly believe he truly wants her on the team. Lost assures her that her talents are valuable, which is why she's welcome in the group. Though she feels undeserving due to her past behavior toward him, Lost emphasizes that acknowledging her mistakes is enough to move forward, convincing her to join. They plan to set out the next morning, leaving Seed to notify the guild, while the others gather supplies. Later, Lost takes Narcena to a drugstore, explaining that burn treatment requires medicine in addition to healing spells. Impressed, Narcena praises his knowledge not just about healing, but about life itself. She then seems to grow pensive, momentarily isolating herself in thought. At that moment, a woman suddenly hugs her from behind, calling her by her nickname, surprising Narcena, who turns to punch her, but the woman dodges with ease. It turns out to be Ralma, a powerful mage known as the Fire Goddess and an old friend of Narcena's father. She explains that Narcena's father asked her to check on her, given how suddenly she left home. Ralma glances at Lost, suspecting he's the reason for Narcena's hasty departure. Lost greets Ralma as his former mentor, which shocks Narcena. The three sit in a tavern and Lost explains that he once trained under Ralma's guidance, while Narcena mentions Ralma's connection to her father. Ralma asks Lost to leave the table, wanting a private chat with Narcena, but he refuses, reminding her that he and Narcena are teammates who trust each other. He suspects Ralma might even be trying to coerce Narcena to return home against her will. Demonstrating his growth, he dodges a fireball she sends his way, convincing Ralma to let him stay. Narcena then admits she left home in a hurry and only left a note saying, "I'm off to see the young man. Don't worry," which both Ralma and Lost find amusingly vague and alarming for her parents. Ralma asks her why she left, and though Narcena hesitates, she hints it was because of Lost. She explains that she had family servants look after him when she heard he'd been expelled from the Blade of Lightning, but decided to join him herself when she could. Lost encourages her to seek her father's blessing, but she worries that doing so might mean never seeing Lost again. Ralma promises to handle the matter. Afterward, with Lost gone to get her a drink, Ralma teases Narcena for her fear of losing Lost, to which Narcena insists that he's no ordinary man as he's not only skilled in battle, but also kind. Although she joined him to help, she's the one who's benefited from him. Ralma tells her that Lost didn't start this way, but rather, he grew into a better person because of her, even challenging Ralma to protect her friend. Feeling encouraged, Narcena leaves the tavern with Lost while Ralma heads to the guild to check on Miss, who seems to be up to something. The next morning, the group gathers for the expedition. Sheila hands them a basket of food, asking if the Phoenix is truly dangerous. Jealous, Narcena takes the basket and assures her that they'll be fine because she'll protect Lost. Sheila, worried, mentions that this only increases her concern, which makes everyone laugh before they set off on their mission. The group's journey ends as they arrive at the entrance of a dungeon and teleport inside. Upon arrival, Narcena glances around the area and, finding no immediate threats, remarks that she expected the Phoenix to confront them right away. Lost chuckles, pointing out that the space is too cramped for a creature of that size. With that, the team begins exploring. Steve comments that winged creatures dislike confined spaces and prefer environments with high ceilings and expansive views. As they delve deeper into the labyrinth, the passages grow wider. Armia observes that this area matches the description of the Phoenix's lair, with its towering ceilings and open expanses. Lara is confident the creature is nearby, adding that a newly discovered passage in this area yet to be explored is rumored to contain treasures and rare items. However, C warns that a powerful monster guards that passage, deterring adventurers. The guild has even placed a bounty on its head. Soon, Lost spots burn marks on a nearby pillar, strengthening Sieg's belief that they are nearing the Phoenix's nest. To confirm this, he tosses a stone down a dark corridor, explaining that the birds are highly territorial and would never allow intruders to pass unchallenged. Just then, a portal opens near the ceiling, releasing a fiery explosion. The flames coalesce into a majestic phoenix. Meanwhile, in the city, Amberst lounges in boredom at the guild's reception desk until Ralma, a mysterious sorceress, arrives. The receptionist greets her enthusiastically, noting how the guild always strives to treat adventurers warmly. However, Amberst's demeanor changes when she notices Ralma's subtle display of wealth, her modest yet high-end attire and magical accessories. Recognizing her importance, Amberst offers her assistance. Ralma, however, shocks the receptionist by stating she wishes to meet the branch president despite having no appointment, and adds that she might kill him. Alarmed, Amherst declares such behavior unacceptable and refuses her request. In response, Ralma conjures a fireball in her hand, sending the receptionist fleeing in panic. As tensions rise, Handsome, a senior guild member, intervenes. Recognizing Ralma, he addresses her calmly, explaining that if she has concerns, she can discuss them with him. Amherst is surprised by Handsome's familiarity with Ralma, and he reveals her true identity, the goddess of fire capable of reducing the entire guild to ashes if she desired. Back in the dungeon, the phoenix stays perched high above, out of the party's reach. Lost suggests using a bow instead of melee weapons, but before a plan is made, the phoenix attacks, launching a torrent of flames. Marcina barely escapes thanks to Sieg's quick healing magic. Sieg warns the group about the phoenix's primary weapon, its fireballs, while Armia prepares her water-based magic to counter its attacks. At the guild, Handsome discusses with Ralma the recent strange events in the labyrinth. He dismisses her suspicions, claiming ignorance of the city's surrounding pillars and strange happenings. Ralma accuses him of bringing criminal adventurers into the city and expelling honest guild members who question his actions. She believes the guild is intentionally preparing for chaos, such as a revolt in the labyrinth, by gathering expendable adventurers. Handsome denies involvement, laughing off her intuition-based accusations. Ralma, however, grows impatient, slamming her hand on the table and demanding honesty. As the group battles the phoenix in the labyrinth, they struggle to counter its aerial advantage. The bird refuses to descend, bombarding them with flames while avoiding direct combat. Armia warns that the intense heat is depleting the area's oxygen, making the situation even more dire. Lost speculates that the phoenix is avoiding direct confrontation out of self-preservation, as it sees the party as a significant threat. Sieg agrees and commands Armia to unleash her long-range water magic to force the creature to engage. The group's objective in the dungeon becomes clear: target the phoenix wings. The bird's fiery plumage acts like feathers, and dousing it with water might not bring it crashing down, but could at least force it lower, making it vulnerable to melee attacks. Sieg, the group leader, warns that Armia's spell will take time to prepare, leaving her exposed in the process. However, Sieg reassures her that he will draw the phoenix's fire, keeping her safe. Marcina adds that the whole group is there to protect her, a sentiment echoed by Lost. With that, Sieg, Lost, and Marcina sprint to divert the phoenix's attention, giving Armia the time she needs. Watching this unfold, Lyra reflects on Armia's growth. Despite her struggles, Lyra knows the mage must learn to trust her team if she hopes to become a top adventurer. Armia channels her energy into forming a water arrow, which she launches at the phoenix, striking its right wing. The attack forces the bird to descend closer to the group. Seizing the opportunity, Sieg attacks with his sword, wounding the creature, though not enough to defeat it. Back at the guild office, Handsome denies all of Ralma's accusations about a potential uprising in the labyrinth. Ralma, however, warns that the recent disturbances in the city, including strange monster mutations and concentrated mana, point to something larger. At that moment, deep within the dungeon, the phoenix begins to mutate, doubling in size as its fiery red feathers shift to an intense blue hue. Armia is horrified by the transformation, recalling her near-death experience against a Hydra's mutation. Lyra fears a similar disaster could occur, but realizes Armia must overcome her fear to contribute. As Armia freezes, unable to move, Lyra grabs her arm just as the phoenix unleashes a fireball. With no time to evade, C intercepts the flames, slicing through them to protect his teammates. The phoenix retaliates with a barrage of fireballs, but C tirelessly deflects each attack. He urges Armia to gather her courage and cast her magic, as they can't win without her. Meanwhile, Ralma leaves the guild, frustrated with Handsome's feigned ignorance. She inspects one of the mysterious pillars surrounding the city, casting a fire spell on it. The pillar exudes an unsettling sensation, leaving even the fire goddess perplexed. Back in the dungeon, Marcina lands her first strike on the phoenix, but finds herself burned by its fiery body, leaving her vulnerable. The phoenix lunges and Lost steps in, blocking its claws. However, the intense heat nearly melts his sword. Meanwhile, Lyra heals Armia and waits for her to prepare another spell. This time, Armia conjures a massive ice arrow, piercing the phoenix's right wing and forcing it to descend again. Though still not grounded, the bird now flies lower. Marcina uses the dungeon's columns to leap high into the air, delivering a powerful kick to the phoenix's skull, sending it crashing to the ground. Lost seizes the opportunity, plunging his dagger into the creature's head to finish it. With their victory secured, the group praises Armia for her pivotal role in the fight. Overwhelmed, she thanks them and holds up the phoenix's magic stone in celebration. Later, back in the city, the group finds Ralma at Mary's tavern. After bribing Amherst, the fire goddess learns about their hunt and teasingly mentions it to Lost, irritating him. Ralma notes that Lost earned both the bounty and payment for the magic stone, and suggests he could at least buy her a meal. Lost suspects she's more interested in drinks, especially since she's already indulging despite her low alcohol tolerance. As the group sits down to eat, Marcina enjoys the food while a tipsy Ralma complains about the toughness of the meat, prompting Sheila to slam her drink onto the table in frustration. In a surprising revelation, Ralma casually mentions that Marcina is the daughter of a count, leaving the group stunned. Lost recalls a young girl he saved years ago, realizing it was her. Elsewhere, Handsome informs Mist of the Phoenix's mutation and that Ralma is in the city. Mist responds that it's nearly time to put Ralma, his apprentice, to work. A day after selling the magical Phoenix Stone, Narcena could barely believe the extravagant reward her group received for retrieving such a challenging artifact. Meanwhile, Amherst suggested she hold off on complaining until they checked the bag's contents. Upon opening it, Narcena was mesmerized by the golden shimmer inside. The guild clerk explained that paying in silver or copper would have made the load unbearably heavy, so she opted for gold to make it more manageable. Stunned by Narcena's attitude, the receptionist shared that securing those coins required significant effort, including assistance from other agencies. Feeling unappreciated, she left without saying goodbye after Lost thanked her for her efforts. Amherst, puzzled, asked Narcena if something had happened between them, but she brushed it off as unimportant. Meanwhile, in the town square, a storyteller captivated children with a tale about a malevolent dragon lurking in the depths of a dark labyrinth, awakening every 200 years to threaten the world. Only the legendary hero, beloved by all, could vanquish it. The storyteller then asked the children who they believed would triumph, and they enthusiastically declared it would be a hero. Narcena arrived at that moment with food she had bought from a street vendor, though her demeanor remained subdued. Noticing this, she proposed renting a house with their newfound wealth. Amherst found the idea unnecessary, but Narcena insisted she had given it much thought. He eventually agreed that a private home would be more comfortable and economical than an inn, especially since Narcena had researched affordable options. When asked if she disliked their current lodging, Narcena clarified that Mary's Inn was cozy and served excellent food, but the bustling environment made it too noisy. She longed for a quiet space where she and Lost could converse alone, perhaps by a fireplace with warm drinks. Teasingly, she suggested that such a setup might spark a romance, then quickly dismissed it as a joke. However, Lost's dismissive response about not being ready to live together dampened her mood. Changing the subject, Lost reminded her that they needed to save money for emergencies and mentioned that C had invited them to form an official team. Since their partnership had only been temporary for the Phoenix mission, making a long-term commitment might influence their living arrangements. Narcena questioned if Lost genuinely wanted to team up with Sieg and the others. Lost reasoned that having strong allies like C would be beneficial for future dungeon expeditions. Hearing this, Narcena reassured him that as long as he was by her side, she would follow. Later, the group gathered to celebrate becoming permanent teammates. Mary, ever the gracious host, treated them to a feast featuring roasted chicken. As Armia grew sleepy, Lara offered to escort her to their room. Stieg stayed behind with Lost at Amherst's suggestion, giving the two a chance to bond. Meanwhile, Narcena went upstairs with Lyra seeking advice. She confided in Lyra about inviting Lost to live together and his refusal, fearing it meant he didn't like her. Lyra reassured her, saying Lost likely struggled to express his feelings and preferred taking things slow. Flattered by Lyra's insight, Narcena remarked that she had come to the right person for advice, suspecting Lyra's wisdom came from personal experience. Lyra dismissed the notion with a wry smile, noting her life was far less romantic than Narcena imagined. Downstairs, C and Lost discussed the same topic. Sieg saw no harm in Narcena and Lost living together, especially since Narcena's feelings were obvious. It would be cruel to ignore them unless Lost didn't share them. Embarrassed, Lost admitted he admired Narcena deeply, as she had reignited his courage and insisted on teaming up when he was ready to give up on himself. Sieg pressed further, asking if Lost loved her, causing him to blush and stammer in response. Back in the room, Lyra shared a story from her past to satisfy Narcena's curiosity. She recalled her days in the capital, where her beauty attracted unwanted attention from men, some joining her team with ulterior motives. One such man grew obsessed and eventually attempted to harm her. Thankfully, Lyra fended him off and emerged unscathed. However, C, who had recruited the man, never forgave himself for the incident. Hearing this, Narcena felt a deeper respect for Lyra, recognizing her resilience and strength. Afterward, he left without a word and didn't return. While discussing this with Lost, Sieg admitted that he didn't know how to face Lyra after what happened. When a guild mission brought him back from the royal capital, he hadn't expected to encounter her again. Even more surprising was that Lyra agreed to help him despite everything. In other words, she had forgiven him even when he couldn't forgive himself. Upstairs, Lyra confided in Narcena and Armia, admitting she had never been upset with Sieg over the incident. Her disappointment stemmed from his decision to leave without trying to understand how she felt. Suddenly, Sheila, who had been hiding in the room's shadows, emerged, startling everyone. Unfazed, she delivered food someone had ordered and innocently asked if Lyra had feelings for Sieg, leaving the room in stunned silence. Downstairs, C apologized for driving Lost into his old memories. He then turned the topic to Narcena, asking why Lost had declined her request to live together, especially since he clearly cared for her. Lost admitted he had been thrilled by her invitation but needed to confirm something first. Before he could elaborate, Amherst arrived with a report Lost had commissioned investigating Narsena's family. Earlier that day at the theater, the storyteller had spoken of a sleeping princess with mysterious powers who had once subdued a fearsome dragon. Amherst revealed that Narsena was, in fact, the only daughter of a count and countess. Typically, she or her husband would inherit the family title, but she had abandoned noble life to pursue adventuring. Sieg saw no problem with this, as many adventurers held noble titles. However, Amherst explained that Narsena's father had initially opposed her decision until something extraordinary happened. Narsena herself explained that she hadn't always had her striking blue hair. Years ago, it had been blonde like her parents, but one day she woke up to find it had inexplicably turned blue. This sudden transformation was why Lost hadn't recognized her when they reunited. Amherst further revealed that the Count had changed his stance after Narsena's transformation, seemingly believing that her time might be limited. He reluctantly allowed her to follow her dreams, though Amherst dismissed the notion that someone who could kick a phoenix into the air was on the verge of death. With the report concluded, Amherst requested payment before departing. Afterwards, C asked Lost what he would have done if Narsena's father had still opposed her adventuring life. Lost admitted he would have sent her home to resolve matters with her family, but would have supported her however he could. Steve assured him that his doubts were now behind him. Meanwhile, upstairs, the women discussed Narsena's boldness. Lara admired her determination to pursue her dreams, fight monsters, and even ask someone she loved to live with her. Lara admitted she wished she could be as courageous in her own life. Just then, Narsena appeared, pushing Lyra back to the table. Lara, blushing, asked for a private word with Sieg. Intrigued, Narsena and the others stayed nearby, trying to eavesdrop. In the quiet of the closed bar, Lara nervously asked Sieg if he would consider being more than just a teammate. Sieg, taken aback, initially misunderstood her, prompting Lyra to call him dense. Struggling to express herself, she finally declared her desire to be his life partner. Sieg, visibly flustered, responded that he needed time to think. Frustrated, Lara demanded a firmer answer, but then composed herself, acknowledging that the conversation was a step forward. Outside, Narsena watched the exchange unfold. Seizing the moment, Lost asked if they could talk privately the next day. Narsena agreed, curiosity piqued. Back at the theater, the storyteller revealed the tragic ending of the sleeping princess. To seal the dragon away, she had sacrificed herself, believing the hero would one day return to defeat the beast. Her selfless act brought peace to the world. As the story concluded, the storyteller revealed a doll of the sleeping princess, his blue hair eerily reminiscent of Narsena's. A group of adventurers found themselves in a dire situation while exploring a dungeon. They encountered a creature that shouldn't have been on their level. To avoid a confrontation, they kept silent, hoping it would pass. As they cautiously moved toward the exit, they were ambushed by a half-orc. One of the party members anxiously asked the leader what to do. The leader revealed they had hired the new recruit for exactly this kind of situation. Without hesitation, he grabbed the rookie and hurled him at the monster to create a diversion, giving the rest of the group a chance to escape. Back at Mary's tavern, Narsena sat distracted, idly poking at her food. Armia tried to snap her out of it, and after a few attempts, succeeded. However, Narsena seemed too preoccupied to understand her surroundings. Lyra speculated that her anxiety stemmed from Lost mentioning he needed to speak with her. Despite Lyra's encouragement for Lost to address the issue, he hesitated, visibly stressed. Meanwhile, Narsena fiddled with a flower seed and some wire, oblivious to the tension around her. Lara and Armia pressed Lost to act before Narsena accidentally ate something strange. Lost finally stood up, ready to talk, but Keith suddenly burst into the room injured. Sheila immediately rushed to help him, while Narsena showed concern for the wounded adventurer, interrupting the moment. To reassure the group, a healer explained that Keith's injuries weren't as severe as they looked and assured everyone that Lyra and Sheila would tend to him. Narsena agreed Lyra's help made sense but was puzzled about Sheila's involvement until Mary entered and explained that Sheila and Keith had been childhood friends. Mary further revealed that Keith was a labyrinth orphan, like her own daughter. She had once cared for Keith, giving him food and shelter. He later chose to become an adventurer, ecstatic to join a party. Lost apologized to Narsena for the interruption, promising to continue their talk later, as the situation required them to head to the Adventurers Guild. Upon arrival, they discovered Keith's group tied up, having confessed to their crimes. Marnell, who had captured them at Lost's request, deferred the decision about their punishment to him. Lost spared them further harm but banished them from the town. Marnell warned the prisoners that Lost's mercy granted them their lives, but they'd be killed if they returned. Terrified, they fled, vowing never to return. During the commotion, Amherst arrived, reprimanding the adventurers for taking justice into their own hands. One member retorted, blaming the guild's negligence. The adventurers argued that since Milwyn was responsible, they had to act independently. Amherst responded that she didn't set the rules, causing Lost to lose patience. He questioned the leadership's reasoning for allowing outsiders into guild headquarters. Handsome, the deputy chief, arrived, criticizing Lost for acting unilaterally. He reminded Lost that issuing judgments without guild approval undermined protocol and could lead to the group's expulsion. Tempers flared as two group members challenged Handsome's authority, accusing him of neglecting his duties. Their leader intervened, urging calm, and Lost agreed to speak with Handsome privately. In Handsome's office, Lost argued that while orphans were common in dungeon cities, Marmot lacked systems to support them. Handsome countered, stating the guild had limited resources for unproven projects. Outraged, Lost accused the guild of indifference in using orphans as expendable tools. Handsome reminded Lost that adventuring was voluntary, including for those unfit for the dangers it entailed. He further pointed out that Lost, as an adventurer, had no authority to dictate guild policies. If Lost disagreed with the city's approach, he was free to leave. Handsome concluded by reiterating the harsh reality: only those prepared to face danger deserve to survive. Handsome revealed a mark on his arm, reminding Lost of his true identity as Noxum. Years ago, Noxum endured mistreatment from his adventuring party, forced to bear their burdens while facing constant threats and disdain. However, Lost, the group's healer, always treated him with kindness and respect, even offering assistance. Noxum, harboring resentment, rejected Lost's generosity, a decision he later regretted. One fateful night, Lost warned Noxum of an incoming goblin attack. The two roused the party, but the goblins were too numerous to fight head-on. In desperation, the group decided to use Noxum and Lost as bait, throwing them off a cliff. As Noxum fell, he looked up, hoping his comrades might reconsider and help. But Lost, knowing their teammates' nature, suspected this was unlikely. The two newcomers had been brought in solely as expendable resources to bear the group's burdens. Despite the betrayal, Lost believed they could survive and seek justice if they worked together. As the goblins closed in, Lost readied his sword, and the two fought back briefly before hiding, managing to avoid detection. Noxum joked they had fulfilled their role as bait, but Lost lamented that even if this wasn't entirely true, the goblins might still pursue their former party. True to Lost's prediction, the goblins eventually turned their attention to the larger group. Noxum quipped that their companions had now become the bait, and Lost admitted he wished he could have helped them, upsetting Noxum, who argued the group deserved their fate for their betrayal. While they debated, Noxum felt a sharp pain in his arm, revealing a deep wound. Lost began casting a healing spell, but Noxum resisted, fearing the goblins might return. He recalled someone's words about adventurers coexisting with danger and how incompetence leads to death. Lost, however, disagreed, arguing that even in a harsh world, the weak could still find redemption. He spoke from experience, having once been saved himself. Handsome recounted how the pair ultimately broke through the goblin lines, with Lost saving Noxum despite the odds. Noxum admitted Lost had been right. The unprepared often pay the price, as their former party had, due to their ignorance of the goblins' nature. After returning to town, the two went their separate ways. Since then, Noxum had been taken in by Mist, rising to become a prominent guild employee. Lost was happy for him, but Handsome shared these memories not just for nostalgia, but to repay a debt. He urged Lost to leave the city and take Narcina with him, calling it the best salvation he could offer. Lost, confused, pressed Handsome for an explanation, but before he could answer, Amherst summoned Lost and Marnell. Amherst revealed growing dissent within the guild, particularly opposition to Handsome's leadership. Mist, the new guild master, often clashed with the senior team. Amherst informed them that the city was under threat from an influx of monsters endangering ordinary citizens. While the guild usually issued bounties for such threats, Handsome's direct approval was required, complicating matters. Amherst explained that guild employees had to cover part of the cost themselves, but the situation was too dire to ignore. Meanwhile, Sai, a seasoned adventurer, trained a group of young boys, including Keith. Lost arrived with Narcina and felt proud of Keith's progress. Lyra praised Narcina's healing magic for aiding Keith's recovery, but also noted his natural aptitude for adventuring. Keith, eager to improve, had requested Sai's guidance in swordsmanship. After practice, Narcina began teaching him hand-to-hand combat. During a brief moment alone, Lyra asked Lost if he had spoken to Narcina yet, but he avoided the question. Later, Handsome received a letter from the royal capital. The Prime Minister instructed the guild to monitor Narcina closely, prompting Handsome to question her significance. Mist shared the legend of the Sleeping Princess, a divine figure who had sacrificed herself to defeat an evil dragon and bring peace. A story misrevealed was more than a myth. Blue hair like Marcena's was a mark of divine favor, making her the only one capable of subduing the dragon once more. The next day, Sieg notices monsters approaching just as Amherst predicted. Assuming they are headed for the city, Lara suggests an ambush to catch them off guard, while Armia proposes attacking from a distance using magic. However, Lost insists on a direct confrontation, unwilling to risk any monsters escaping and endangering civilians. Sieg suggests flanking the creatures by circling a nearby hill, and the group agrees. As they advance, Marcena and Lost pass the overturned carriage from the day they first met. Setting the memory aside, they close in on the monsters and launch their attack. Leading the charge, Marcena strikes the first enemy, recalling how powerless she once felt. Meanwhile, Lost lands a blow on another monster, reflecting on his own past struggles. Now stronger and more confident, they fight as a cohesive team. At one point, Lost warns Marcena of the threat behind her, allowing her to react just in time. Together, they defeat the monsters, demonstrating their growth and teamwork. After the battle, the group pauses to rest, but the ground begins to shake violently. The healer warns of worsening conditions as the city of Marmot is rocked by an earthquake, plunging its people into chaos. Amid the tremors, Miss speculates whether an ominous event is about to unfold. When the quake subsides, Mary and Sheila work to clean up their tavern, sweeping away broken dishes. Lost rushes in to check for serious damage, but the owner assures him it's just minor breakage. Suddenly, one of Marnell's men arrives, urgently summoning the healer to the town square. At the square, Marnell reveals a growing threat: goblins and hobgoblins surrounding Marmot. He plans to lead the defense, but admits the odds are grim without reinforcements, as the guild hasn't been informed and rewards for volunteers are unlikely. Despite this, the healer resolves to help out of duty, and Narcina adds that repaying the locals' kindness is a matter of honor. With reinforcements assembled, Marmot's defenders charge the goblins. Narcina, Armia, and Sieg spearhead the attack, cutting through the first wave, while Lost severs a goblin's arm. Its agonized scream rallies the goblins, who begin chanting an unnerving human language. Though momentarily shocked, Lost urges the team to hold their ground at all costs. The defenders maintain the upper hand, and even as the hobgoblin leader falls, it declares humanity's doom with its final words, claiming no one will survive. The creature then dissolves, ending its life voluntarily. Afterward, Lost picks up a mutated magic stone it dropped and Sieg remarks on its strange appearance. The healer points out how unusual it is for goblins to speak human language. Before they can regroup, a guard reports that the threat isn't over. At the dungeon entrance, the group discovers an overwhelming number of monsters still approaching, forcing a retreat to the city. They plan to recruit more adventurers and head to the guild, where chaos reigns. Adventurers crowd the headquarters, drawn by an enormous reward for defeating the labyrinth monsters, one that even surpasses the Phoenix bounty. However, Amber criticizes the guild's policy of upfront payments, noting that some adventurers have taken the money and fled. Though frustrated, she follows orders to enforce the rule. Marnell admits the dire situation, but hopes honest adventurers will aid the city's defense. Steve wonders if someone is orchestrating this chaos, but no one has answers. Lost observes that such payments require immense financial resources. To everyone's surprise, Ram returns to Marmot, chiding the group for not anticipating this. Though Lost couldn't have foreseen it, it's now evident they are facing the labyrinth's fury. Amherst, familiar with the term, leads the group to a book explaining the phenomenon. The fury involves swarms of monsters pouring out of a labyrinth, typically lasting a day but occasionally persisting until the surrounding area is destroyed. Cities near such labyrinths are often overwhelmed and eventually fall to the onslaught. This phenomenon occurs due to an excessive buildup of magical energy within the dungeon. To stop the fury, all monsters must be eliminated, and the dungeon must release its stored magic. The book reminds Amherst that adventurer guilds were originally established to prevent such disasters by regularly managing the buildup of magical energy. Pensive, Lara wonders how a guild employee could forget this crucial history. Offended, the employee explains that it was barely covered during her training and that she has never experienced a fury before. Ralma clarifies that the last recorded fury happened over a century ago. Even so, Lost finds it strange that Marmot, a city filled with hunters who frequently clear the local labyrinth, is facing this crisis. It seems illogical for the buildup of magical energy to occur in such a region. Even the fire goddess admits she has no explanation. Regardless, the problem is real and the group must find a solution. Lost, alongside his teammates, takes charge of Marmot's defense, rallying residents to donate furniture to build barricades. Despite the influx of adventurers, many left after receiving their advance payment, leaving too few to handle the escalating threat. Aware of the situation, younger warriors don their armor, ready to defend their homeland. Marnell keeps their spirits high, but avoids sending them to the front lines, emphasizing the importance of non-combat roles like messengers and scouts. He explains that battles require more than just fighters, every contribution is critical. The younger soldiers accept their roles and prepare for the coming conflict. As Lost observes them, Marnell wistfully recalls his early days as an eager recruit, lamenting that these boys will lose their innocence, and perhaps their lives, after this battle. As another goblin horde invades Marmot, the adventurers, driven by the promise of wealth, fight fiercely. After the initial wave is repelled, some residents block the entrance with furniture and carts to prevent further invasions. However, stronger monsters soon appear, threatening to overpower their strategy. Lost nervously watches the invaders while Ralma, unbothered, notes how unexpected the monster's rapid attack is. She criticizes Lost for being too transparent with his emotions and advises him to stop blaming himself, reminding him that everyone is experiencing the fury for the first time. Still, she hopes he channels his guilt into fighting with all of his strength. The challenge intensifies as liches, seemingly mutated to withstand sunlight, join the goblins, who continue shouting threats in human language. The fire goddess unleashes her full power, while Lost's root fights valiantly. Just as they think they have prevailed, another wave of monsters arrives. Exhausted, Marnell grumbles about the unending attacks, while Narcina asks Ralma for magical support. However, Ralma chooses to rest, leaving Seed and the Wasp to hold the line while Lara tends to the injured. Despite being outnumbered, the two warriors fight with remarkable skill. In a brief lapse, Seed trips over a discarded club, leaving himself vulnerable. Before the monster can strike, a commanding voice echoes across the battlefield, chastising Seed for his lack of training. Without revealing himself, the man cuts through the monsters with ease. Eventually, he steps forward, revealing himself as Ronaldo, a legendary knight. Narcina recognizes him as her former swordsmanship mentor, and Ronaldo fondly recalls her talent, noting that she excelled more with her hands than with weapons, which shaped her path. He also mentions that Narcina surpassed Lost in this skill, leaving Seed puzzled. The healer admits he also trained under Ronaldo, playfully teasing Ralma, whom Ronaldo refers to as a fire demon. Ronaldo quickly shifts focus, demonstrating his incredible prowess in battle. Ralma explains that he is an extraordinary swordsman and shares their history as adventuring partners. Suddenly, a portal opens and Hansen arrives, warning Ralma that Miss wishes to speak with her. Lost asks to address the branch president, and Seed invites Narcina along as she is confused. Without hesitation, Ralma launches a fireball at Miss. As the smoke clears, Miss emerges unscathed, his pointed ears revealed. Ralma identifies him as one of the last elves cursed by the gods. In response, Miss coolly retorts that such disrespect is unbecoming of a student addressing their master. The mage confirms the details, noting that elves are renowned for their superior magical skills compared to humans. Among them, Miss stands out, having mastered countless spells over her 600-year lifespan. As an enchanter, her abilities far surpass Ralma's. Suddenly, Mist makes a subtle move that goes unnoticed by everyone except Narcina, who reacts with surprise. When Lost asks what happened, Narcina remains silent. Ralma wonders why Mist has decided to meet her old mentor after such a long time, fearing she might be reprimanded for being an inadequate teacher. Mist regrets her doubts but remarks that Handsome, her current apprentice, has shown more respect despite lacking exceptional magical talent. Handsome defends himself, insisting he has learned much from Mist and is ready to prove his worth. The conversation intensifies until Mist summons a table, signaling them to continue their discussion more formally. Ralma recalls how Mist once confessed to luring troublesome adventurers to the city during invasions to protect children, proving Mist's foresight about these attacks. When Mist questions why no one noticed the warning signs, Lost recalls encountering powerful monsters on higher dungeon floors and widespread mana-induced mutations in various regions. Narcina and the healer question how Mist knew of the impending disaster but failed to warn anyone, arguing that better preparation could have saved lives. Handsome interjects, explaining that while they suspected a monster stampede was coming, its timing was unpredictable. It could have been days, months, or even years away, making it impractical to issue a warning. Lost accuses Mist of hiding the truth and attempting to evacuate his group in secret. Ralma points out that something doesn't add up. Mist then admits that her superior, a high-ranking official overseeing all adventurers' guilds, ordered her to keep the threat confidential. Troubled by this, Handsome resolves to stop concealing the truth. Ralma explains that stampedes typically last a few days, devastating cities until the guiding magical force dissipates. She notes that the royal city remains safe because its rulers avoided spreading panic. Mist's precautions were justified, though Lost and Narcina initially believed the leaders acted against the people. Ralma then directs their attention to the large white pillars surrounding Marmot. If her theory is correct, these pillars are Marmot's final defense prepared by the kind-hearted Mist. With that, Miss proposes a pact with her former apprentice. The monster stampede has already begun, and even the strongest adventurers will need rest to endure. In this world, Ralma's body possesses the highest magical power, making her vital for the battle ahead. Meanwhile, Miss, accompanied by Handsome, descends to the dungeon's deepest floor to confront the Labyrinth Master. This revelation stuns Lost and Narcina, as they had believed the Master's location was unknown. Handsome reveals he has a lead and insists the mission, though dangerous, could end the crisis. By defeating the monster boss and severing the mana flow fueling the stampede, they can save the region. Ralma agrees to fight on the front lines. In the chaos of battle, Ronaldo slays countless monsters with his blade, impressing Lyra, who teases Sieg about his struggles to defeat even a single goblin. Frustrated, Sieg retorts that this isn't the time for added pressure. Suddenly, a half-orc appears, effortlessly lifting two humans, sending a chill through the group. Armia worries about the power of such a foe, but Ronaldo reveals even worse news. There are multiple half-orcs among the horde. Concerned for the young recruits behind the barrier, Sieg joins Ronaldo in charging the enemy. Meanwhile, Ralma and her group leave Mist's office. Before parting ways, Handsome reminds her to stick to the plan without hesitation. The mage then heads to a garden gazebo, places her hand on it, and summons a magical circle that activates a hidden portal. Before stepping through, Ralma warns Lost not to trust Mist too much. As Ralma enters, a beam of light shoots into the sky, forming a protective shield around Marmot. The barrier repels the monsters outside while allowing allies to pass through safely. The barrier protecting the city allows the adventurers to focus on internal threats during the battle. Ronaldo advises Sieg to adjust his grip on the sword to conserve energy. Observing the battlefield, he notes how effectively the adventurers are handling their opponents, a feat made possible by the barrier. Lost and Narcina arrive, explaining that the shield is powered by Ralma's immense magical energy. However, maintaining such a massive barrier drains an extraordinary amount of mana. While most would collapse from exhaustion, the gazebo's mechanism continues drawing power from Ralma, even at the cost of her life. Lost reflects on his master's parting words, beginning to grasp their significance. Suddenly, a powerful griffin appears, clawing at the barrier. Though it cannot break through, its immense strength causes the shield to waver. Ronaldo reassures the group that the elven magic will hold, but warns that the mana drain increases as the pressure grows, further endangering Ralma. When Lost tries to confront the griffin, Ronaldo stops him, insisting the task is too great for one person. The group vows to assist, and together they head out. Ronaldo quickly dispatches the first monster, but as the griffin intensifies its assault, he orders the group to prioritize clearing smaller enemies such as goblins and orcs. Suddenly, the monsters retreat, keeping their distance. The group is left puzzled until Ronaldo senses danger. His instincts prove correct as Fenrir, the fastest and most powerful land beast, emerges. Lost explains that Fenrir is even deadlier when paired with a griffin, forming a devastating duo. While Sieg marvels at the sight, Lyra notices his trembling hands. Ronaldo instructs Lost to handle Fenrir while he takes on the griffin. As the group divides, Fenrir lunges toward Armia, but Lost intercepts it, engaging the wolf in direct combat. Lyra admires Lost's quick reflexes, but Sieg reminds her that human stamina depletes rapidly in intense battles. Fenrir slashes Lost's arm, exploiting his weakening state. Before the beast can finish him, Sieg blocks its advance with his sword and calls for Narcina and Lyra to assist Lost while he and Armia fend off the enemy. Lyra begins healing Lost's severe injury, though it takes time. Meanwhile, Ronaldo defeats the griffin and Armia casts a fireball at Fenrir. The wolf dodges and summons an ally with a chilling howl. A lich appears, launching a magical attack at Armia. Narcina swiftly defeats the lich, but finds Lyra unconscious and Lost thrown aside. Enraged, Narcina charges Fenrir, ignoring her companion's warnings, and engages in a fierce duel. Sieg orders Armia to support her, but the risk of hitting Narcina with spells is high. Even so, Narcina lands a powerful kick to Fenrir's head, wounding it, but the wolf retaliates with greater ferocity. The brutal fight leaves Narcina at a disadvantage. Fenrir's claws slash her arm, leaving her drained and injured. She collapses on her back, the beast's paw pinning her down. Despite the dire situation, she smiles and declares that the enemy hasn't truly won. At that moment, Lost reappears, seemingly recovered. While he had appeared defeated earlier, he had been healing himself and waiting for an opportunity. He drives his dagger into Fenrir's side, dealing a fatal blow. The beast falls, and Narcina faints, satisfied with her effort. When Narcina awakens later, she is surprised to be alive. She asks Ronaldo about the griffin, and he reveals a magical stone dropped by the creature. This discovery gives her hope for Ralma's survival. However, Lost warns that the outcome still hinges on the branch president defeating the Labyrinth Master. Agreeing to regroup, the party decides to return to the hotel to plan their next move. As Marcena stands, she notices her companion's injuries and comments on their struggles. Lost responds that everyone is alive, but before she can say more, he unexpectedly performs a daring act. With no warning, he kidnaps her, carrying her into a portal. Marnell and the adventurers had just defeated the last of the monsters threatening the town. For now, the barrier was holding, ensuring everyone's safety. Keith and some children arrived with food, encouraging the weary group to rest, but Marnell was too anxious about Lost to relax, and the others shared his unease. Sheila stepped forward to calm him, revealing that Lost had already returned to the inn. Relieved, Marnell asked if everyone had made it back safely, but his relief was short-lived. While Lost and most of the group were safe, Marcena hadn't returned. As the team gathered to plan their next steps, the question arose. Ronaldo suspected it was because she was the fabled sleeping princess. Armia was doubtful, dismissing the story as a myth, but the others began to see truth in it. According to the legend, the sleeping princess could lull the evil dragon to sleep, though only by sacrificing herself. Handsome's motive became clear. He intended to use Marcena as a sacrifice. Meanwhile, Handsome delivered Marcena to Mist, who commended his efforts. Marcena, realizing Mist was her captor, immediately tried to attack him. However, Mist quickly subdued her using his powers. When she demanded to know why she had been taken, Mist evaded a direct answer, instead asking what she knew about the evil dragon. Frustrated, Marcena retorted that everyone knew about the creature. Mist, unamused, pressed further, ultimately releasing her and asking for her understanding. Marcena described the dragon as a monstrous beast that had terrorized the land 200 years ago and was defeated by a legendary hero. Mist corrected her, revealing a crucial detail. The dragon wasn't truly defeated, but merely sent back to its origin. He explained that this cycle had repeated every 200 years, with the dragon returning to wreak havoc only to be driven back by a new hero. The pattern stretched back 800 years, but this time no hero had appeared to stop it. Alarmed, Marcena asked if anyone could stop the dragon. Mist revealed that while no hero had arisen, someone else could put the dragon to sleep, the sleeping princess. He then disclosed that Marcena herself was the chosen one, a fact confirmed by her hair turning blue, a trait that marked the chosen maiden in every cycle. Marcena, shocked, wondered if her father had known, suspecting he had encouraged her adventuring because he understood her destiny. The group debated Mist's intentions, was asked Ronaldo if Mist planned to use Marcena as a sacrifice. Ronaldo doubted Mist was acting on his own and suggested the order came from the Chancellor of the Adventurers Guild. The Chancellor's focus was solely on minimizing the dragon's destruction, regardless of the cost. Armia found this approach practical, but Ronaldo clarified the grim reality. The Chancellor would sacrifice 40 lives to save 60, prioritizing damage control over prevention. Ronaldo revealed that the Chancellor had long known the dragon's return was imminent, thanks to mana analysis and labyrinth patterns. Marmate's destruction had been predicted decades ago. Yet instead of warning the townspeople, the Chancellor had intended to let the town perish as a grim example to rally everyone against the threat, securing the authority needed to defeat the dragon. Marmot's lack of defensive walls was a deliberate decision meant to ensure its fall. Mist, however, had opposed this plan. He had secretly created a barrier to protect Marmot and had taken Marcena as leverage against the dragon. His ultimate goal was to defeat the labyrinth boss to halt the stampede and buy more time. Determined to act, the group realized finding Mist would be a challenge. Given that he was heading for the labyrinth boss, he was likely deep within its unexplored and perilous levels, making the mission both dangerous and urgent. Ronaldo gathers the group to secure everyone's commitment to rescuing Marcena, but was especially resolute in the effort. Meanwhile, Mist, Handsome, and Marcena use a magic circle in Mist's office to teleport deep into the labyrinth, arriving in a vast and foreboding area. At the same time, Lost and the rest of the group enter the labyrinth, only to find it eerily empty. Most monsters have been driven out by the stampede. Knowing new creatures will spawn soon, they press forward urgently. In the depths of the labyrinth, Mist's group encounters a colossal Cyclops, a high-level monster that shocks Marcena. She questions what kind of place this could be, and Mist explains it is the labyrinth's deepest floor where the dungeon boss resides. The location has been a closely guarded secret, known only to Mist, Handsome, and Lost until now. As Lost catches up to Marcena, he calls her name, inadvertently drawing the Cyclops' attention. Despite the danger, Lost's strength is undeniable. His eyes glow red as he swiftly disables one Cyclops and slays the others. Once the battle ends, he reassures the group and returns to normal. Confronting Mist, Lost demands an explanation. Mist, surprisingly cooperative, hands Marcena back, stating he opposes the Chancellor's methods and wants to minimize harm. Ronaldo and the others remain wary of Mist, given his morally ambiguous actions involving Marcena and other adventurers. However, Mist argues that no one has died yet and insists their priority is to defeat the labyrinth boss before it's too late. He reveals that Lost must be the one to land the final blow, emphasizing the god's favor of humans over other races like elves. Aware of his own diminishing time, Mist urges the group not to rely on him further. With no better options, the group agrees to proceed. As they approach the boss's temple, Narcena questions Say's trust in Mist and even Lost harbors doubts. Despite their reservations, they press on, determined to save everyone. At the temple, Mist explains that the dragon draws power from the magic accumulated by the labyrinth's rampaging monsters, which the boss channels to the dragon. Defeating the boss would halt the stampede and delay the dragon's revival. However, Mist warns that this solution is temporary. The dragon could still gather mana from another labyrinth. Mist slams his staff on the ground, summoning the dungeon boss, a terrifying siren. The group launches a coordinated assault. Armia immobilizes the siren with a spell, while C and Ronaldo sever its wings with precision strikes. The battle seems under control until the siren retaliates with a barrage of magic blasts. Marnell counters with a devastating punch, cracking its face and forcing it to retreat. However, Lost intercepts and finishes the fight with a decisive slash, cutting the siren in half. Their victory is short-lived. Dark tendrils stab through Handsome's back as the evil dragon's voice echoes from a portal. The dragon, having already gathered enough mana to partially manifest, furiously confronts Mist for interfering. It demands Mist surrender his body to save Handsome's life. Mist hesitates, knowing compliance would doom the world. Reluctantly, he decides to let Handsome die to seal a portal. Yet his brief hesitation gives the dragon the opportunity to seize control of Mist's body as a vessel. Using Mist's power, the dragon stabilizes the portal and begins transferring energy. However, the labyrinth lacks sufficient mana, so it teleports to another location to continue its plans. Handsome collapses as the dragon departs. Lost rushes to heal him, but Handsome urges Lost to pursue the dragon instead, warning of the devastation it could cause. The dragon emerges on the outskirts of the city, unleashing a torrent of destructive magic. The barrier protecting the city is pushed to its limits, on the verge of collapse.